viewers. Today we are back and we have the privilege of having Saad Tariq with us today, who is a very close colleague of mine. Saad has been working with the Fine Line Consultants and has over 10 years of experience in training and OD. He has been designing OD frameworks for government and private entities in Pakistan and also in the Middle East. He spends half of his time in the Middle East working for clients and half of his time in Pakistan where he delivers trainings and OD related stuff. Mine. Assalamu alaikum, Saad.
Walaikum assalam, Shazib. कैसे हैं आप?
I'm good, Saad. How are you?
I am all right. Alhamdulillah.
So, Saad, coming from an OD background or a training background, I feel that whenever we go to clients for trainings or whenever we want to deliver the trainings, one of the main thing that comes to my mind is instructional design. Because I think it's a very important part in the implementation and also a making of the training. So please tell our viewers what exactly is instructional design.
Okay, so Shazib, first of all, I think we need to understand that instructional design is this very basic concept of how is it that you will go ahead and conduct a training session or any learning activity in that regard. Whenever I want to make sure that there is an objective of any training program, how do I make sure I design that objective, or what would be the process for me to get to that objective? And that primarily depends on how is it that what steps you'll take for your learners and what tools will you use for your learners to get to that point where you want them to be. So instructional design has not been something that people have been focusing a lot on. Why? Because they believe the conventional way of how we used to train was that we would have a PowerPoint presentation. On the presentation, we'll have whatever we've learned, all the theory and the concepts that we've learned. We'll put them up, we will talk about them, we'll talk about our experiences, and that would be a training session. I think what I have seen, the change that I've seen over time, is that people have now moved towards designing new ways of conducting these trainings and making the most of these trainings. And that is where instructional design comes in. So I think it's in the word that how do you instruct someone on how to be better or develop a skill, and what would be the design of it is what matters. I think इसमें एक concept है जो काफी अरसे से has been circling and it has been a buzzword for a while now. It's called human-centered design. Where is it that you design anything that you're doing, whether it's a process, it's a task, or a way that you will be conducting something, keeping the humans in mind or keeping people in mind, because they're the ones that will be executing it. So it's very important that you keep them as the core or the focal point. So human-centered design se phir people started moving towards instructional design, which is understanding how you design a program, keeping your learners in mind. That is what instructional design is. I was actually going through a research and I figured out it's basically research done by ATD, Association of Talent Development. So they were talking about the top 3 instructional design tools that are used or principles. Sabse pehla hai ADDIE. I'm pretty sure you know about it. ADDIE.
ADDIE,
which is something that which a lot of instructors and trainers they use, because it's simple, 2, it is very straightforward, 3, it is just 5 things that you need to make sure that you have within a program for it to follow the ADDIE model. The second one is the Bloom taxonomy, understanding. Malcolm Knowles is this guy who came up with the 6 principles of how people learn. The third one is Kirkpatrick evaluation model. So these are the 3 basic principles that are used worldwide, because ADDIE is something that has been used for a while now. So a lot of people use that. Bloom taxonomy se wahi use karte hain jinko ke understanding hai of people who've gone through the whole process of learning instructional design and learning about principles and concepts and ideologies that were introduced by subject matter experts, people who are experts in the field of learning and development or talent development. Kirkpatrick, over the past few years, has been a model that has been used very widely. Why? Because it talks about certain steps that you need to keep in check and steps that you need to go through in order to get to a point where you can say there was an effective learning experience.
I've always been in the dilemma, and today I'm getting the chance to ask you this question. Is it more important to focus on the learners, or is it more important to focus on the objectives of the training?
Before I started working as a trainer on my own, I remember I used to go to clients and we would talk to them about what is it that they want out of the program. And most of them said that, we have this objective, or humne ye objective meet karna now, or we have to meet this objective. Now, what we don't understand is that in order to meet that objective, the people who will eventually end up meeting that objective are the learners. So the learners are very important. The first step, or the first thing that you need वो है on understanding your learners, because only then you can design something for them that will eventually help the company get to the objective. So they have to be aligned together. You cannot say that you'll only focus on the learners, because अगर मैं सिर्फ learners पे focus करूँ ना, तो I'll say I'll just make sure they have a good time during the training. That is my only concern if I only focus on the learners. But if I want to make sure that the objective is met as well, I will make sure that my training activity or that engagement is fun and engaging, and they'll end up learning something from it. They have to have that aha moment where they say, yes, we learned something today. So if you ask me, I think understanding the learners is your prerequisite to get to meeting the objectives.
But how do you make sure that the objectives that you're set are good enough for the learners to take home? By good enough, I mean that how easy it is for them to understand those concepts that you're going to give to them.
Let's say I have someone who's been in the industry for 10 years and I'm training them on a very simple concept of how to write effective emails. Let's just take a very simple example, because normally simple examples are easier to understand.
Yes.
So how to write effective emails. Now this person has been writing emails for 10 years, right? If I tell him, in order to write emails, you need to first make sure your subject line is perfect and the content is relevant, it's to the point, it's concise, it is written keeping the audience in mind, he's going to say, I know all of this. Tell me something that I don't know. Now, in that case, my objectives need to be designed according to that learner. Okay, I need to, in that training, do something that he, by the end of it, feels that, you know what, this I didn't know about, or this is something that I have learned from today's session.
How do you set the objectives of the training that are measurable? Because setting objectives is easy, but making them measurable so that you can derive results from it, how are you going to do that?
There's this principle that has been used, because lately what I've identified is that there's some amazing research that has been done in the field of making objectives more measurable and making goals more measurable as well, and making sure that, yes, you set goals in a way that they become more achievable. There's this concept which is used in bigger enterprises as well, and I think it was initiated by Laszlo Block. So he mentioned about this concept of OKRs, which is objective key results. Now, what OKR का जो basic concept है ना, वो ये है कि you set an objective, keeping in mind that you have matrix or something to measure it as well. So if I'm setting an objective, I will be able to make sure that I can see whether that objective is met by a key result, and that key result has to be specific and measurable. Ideally, it should be in numbers. If it cannot be in numbers, it should be something that is an end result. OKRs normally are used in companies to set goals. Let's say if I have a goal from a certain department, how do I achieve that goal? I set an objective, and with that objective, I associate a key result. So just like that in trainings, you can do that as well. We're trying to do this for our clients in the Middle East, where we're trying to develop an entire framework around the concept of OKRs, that everything from in a company, which is, let's say, strategically important or something which is day to day, can be measured by setting or by designing OKRs around it.
Saad, can you give us an example of, let's say, a communication skill training, and what would be the objective and what would be the key result?
So let's say if the objective is to understand your message, I need to make sure that by the end of this program, whenever I have a message, people understand that message. Now, the objective is making sure your message is clear, concise, and short, or understandable. Let's say, just because we can add as many words as we want, but I think let's just keep it simple. My message is understood. That is the objective. Now, the key result for it could be the fact that people, whenever I have a message, will not have any questions for me to understand that message clearly. क्योंकि अभी क्या होता है कि मैं अगर मेरे पास एक मैसेज है ना, मैंने आपको मैसेज देना है, I will tell you that I'm doing A, B, C. You'll say, okay, I understand A, B, but can you elaborate C a little more? Now that means somewhere during मेरा जो deliver करने का message, the तरीका, or maybe the way that I delivered the message, or the content that I used, or the wording was not, let's say, something that you could relate to for point C. So I need to make sure my words, my verbiage. Yes. So an OKR for this would be, if I want to make my message understandable, the key result will be that when I'm done delivering my message, people will have no questions about the message. They might have questions about add-ons or something else in regards to that message, but not that message.
This was a new concept for me as well, and I hope that our viewers will learn a lot from the knowledge that you gave. Moving forward, Saad, we've already discussed about the objectives part. Now let's come to the learners part. How
Mhm.
do you set clear learning objectives of a training? Uh,
Mhm. Acha, usme na, there is this other model that is used. I believe there are certain models that you can use, things that can help you do them better. So, for example, if I have to keep it very simple, there's this model that I use. It's called the ABCD model. Once again, ABCD are acronyms. Acronyms for A is for audience, B is for behavior, C is for condition, D is for degree. Now, if you want to understand them separately, I think audience is self-understood. It is talking about who your audience is. You design your learning objectives keeping your audience in mind, जो हमने पहले भी discuss किया है.
yes,
The
बिल्कुल.
second one is behavior. Because see, normally ना दो तरह के changes आते हैं लोगों में. There are two important learning gaps that we need to understand. एक है knowledge का, एक है skill का. Some people don't have the knowledge, some people don't have the skill of how to execute that or how to go ahead and achieve that outcome. So behavior की जब हम बात करते हैं, हम कहते हैं कि what is it that I want the person to be able to do after this training? Like for example, meaningful messages की बात करते हैं, जो हमने बात की थी कि how to make my communication more understandable, or how is that whenever I have a message, the other person understands the message. The behavior that I want to associate to that is that whenever I am designing or I'm drafting my message or thinking about my message, I make sure that I have a good understanding of what I want the audience to do, how I want them to respond. Because eventually, what you want from any training is behavioral change. You want people to start behaving differently. You want them to either be more efficient, you want them to do things differently, you want them to understand concepts differently. So that's what behavioral question answer. तीसरा है condition. Okay, what are the conditions of the learning that you want to somehow inculcate in people and make sure that they understand कि उनकी इस पर कंडीशन क्या है. तो एक तो मुझे ऑडियंस की समझ लगी, मुझे पता है ऑडियंस किस तरह की है, मुझे समझ लगे कि मैं क्या बिहेवियरल आउटकम चाह रहा हूं उनसे. फिर मुझे ये पता होना चाहिए कि उनकी कंडीशन क्या है. व्हाट इज द कंडीशन ऑफ द लर्निंग एज ऑफ नाउ, whether they are people who have no idea of the skill or they have some idea of the skill. Are they at a beginner's level, at an intermediate level, or an expert level? What exactly is it that I want them to take away from the session, keeping in mind that it has to link with the behavioral outcome. और जो fourth है वो है degree, कि किस degree तक change आएगा उनमें. What do I expect? So for example, अगर मैं communication skills के session की बात करूँ, one session cannot fix communication issues. So what do? You identify the extent or the degree of how much change can you bring in. Just get there step by step. You take the first step. The first step is realization, that they'll start realizing that they need to improve. इस model के बिना understanding ये है कि whatever you feel is necessary. So normally, in a normal session, the three things that you will focus on is the audience, behavior, and condition. कि audience कैसी है मेरी, what is the behavioral outcome I want out of it, and what is the condition for the learning. How do I want to make sure कि जो हमारी current situation है उसमें I make them take the best out of that program. So that is ABCD. I think what we really should take away from this session that we're having right now is this idea that don't worry about the principles or the concepts that you're using, because see, they are just there to help you. They're there to support you in the entire process of you designing your own programs and then learning objectives and making sure you achieve or are able to get to those objectives. It is more on the lines of how do you understand the dynamics of the people that you're working with. So it is not about the model that you use, it's about how simple you can make it for yourself and how much clarity do you have. Because once you know your learners, I can guarantee you your objectives will be more fruitful, will be more relevant, and people will see the value that you add. Because वो बहुत जरूरी है. Without value, you cannot say that it makes any sense.
Right. Thank you so very much, Saad. I hope that our viewers have gained a lot from this session. This ABCD model and the OKR model was something new for me too, as well. And I hope that the audience have also learned something from it.
Thank you so much, Shazib. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for
अपना
giving
बहुत ख्याल रखना,
session,
Shazib.
Saad. Hope to see you again soon in this virtual world.
Inshallah,
Thanks
inshallah.
a lot.
Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.